I do believe that a great team can be successful with a mediocre idea, while average team is most likely not successful with the best idea.
Welcome back to another edition of COVID-19 from Crisis to Creation here on Mentorit TV. I'm Patricia Falco Beccalli, your host. Well, I am not only the host of this show, but I'm also an investor. I invest in small companies, and together with my partnership, Falco Capital, we invest in what would you call a scale-up company. And looking at the last few months, I can tell you one thing for sure, that the investment environment has gotten a little bit tougher because insecurity, economic insecurity, hasn't really been so great because of the COVID-19 crisis. So that means that in the first half of 2020, VC money going into startup companies is down about 6%, which is only 6%, I have to say, because if you take one big deal that was done for an Indian tech company out of that equation, we are down about 17% half year compared to half year of 2019. What does that mean? Well, we still have companies such as GE, Hewlett-Packard, Netflix, Burger King, let me think, Revolut even, being started during times of recession or depression. So there is still money, there's still a chance, but you as a potential investor have to be more careful, and you as a potential startup companies asking for our money have to be just perfect in your pitch. And this is why I thought, why not just ask, what is a perfect pitch? What does it take for an investor to really be convinced that you are the right entrepreneur, that you are the right product driver, that you see the market exactly how it's going to go, and eventually make us investors money? So I thought, why not invest one of the Höhle der Löwen here in Switzerland? Apart from that, he's of course also a very successful investor. Dr. Tobias Reichmuth joined me here on the show to discuss what it really takes to get some money out of people like you, Tobias, and myself. Thanks so much for joining me.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for the introduction here, and I'm happy to contribute to your show today.
Well, Tobias, you know, I've been watching Höhle der Löwen here in Switzerland, but I'm a huge fan of Shark Tank in the US or Dragon's Den in the UK. And it really intrigues me as an investor myself, what other investors, VCs, are really looking for when they have, you know, a young entrepreneur in front of them with full of passion, and they have like about 6, maximum 10 minutes to pitch their idea, so much so that we would actually invest 100,000 or even 500,000 into them. What are you looking for?
First of all, are people authentic? Yeah? And I think what very often goes wrong is that people come to the show with, you know, they have 6 minutes in their head. They know every sentence, one after the other. That doesn't really look authentic. It looks like it's cool. And maybe it's perfect, but you can see that people are concentrating on finding the right words rather than thinking what they are saying. So, and sometimes it happens that suddenly they lose it, and they have no clue. I mean, they have their own business, and they're standing in front of us 5 investors, and suddenly you see blank. Yeah. Now, what would I advise? You know your company. If you start a company, you know what you do. So start with, what is the problem and how do I solve it? And you don't need to know it by heart. You don't need to have every sentence ready. Just talk about what you do. And I think this comes over much more authentic and honest. If you forget something, you have 1 full hour in that show. You know, I mean, what you see on TV is 50 minutes. In reality, it's 60 to 90 minutes. Yeah. You will be asked about it. Yeah. So, but I think that would be advice number 1. Don't learn everything by heart. Just go there and tell what you do.
Yeah, I think the authenticity is really important because it's energy you transmit. And, you know, you and I, we sit there and we feel the people. And of course, they're excited, so we discount that. However, at the end of the day, it really is the person that we invest in. I mean, if I look at the teams or the entrepreneur, yes, passion is great. But me personally, I look for, do you have actually the guts, not only the guts, but the resilience? Do you have perhaps even leadership qualities apart from the knowledge in your product? Do you have many more things? So I'm looking for the person, not only authentic, but also capable and withstanding.
Agree. And often it's not only a person, it's a team. So I do believe that a great team can be successful with a mediocre idea, while average team is most likely not successful with the best idea. So for me, the team, the founder, what's the motivation? Are they all in, skin in the game? And if it's a team, are they, how shall I say, this formula of 1 + 1 is more than 2, it should be 3. Yeah. Do they really bring together the knowledge, the experience, the different characters which is needed to make this idea successful? So you're absolutely right. Team is number 1. Number 2, you look at the idea, what market is it? Is it a growing market, and so on. Number 3, I would say, as an investor, and very often people get this wrong in a show like, I heard it a little, Shark Tank. As an investor, you want to have a factor 10 when you invest in a startup. And I explained why. Yeah. You are at total risk with the money you invest in. And it's a startup. You put in 100% and you might lose 100%. So on the other side of the balance, I don't want to have 100% upside. I want to have a 1000% upside. This should cover for the losses I will make. Mind you, I have done now probably north of 20 startup investments. Mm-hmm. Do all go right? No.
No, the ratio is actually very slim in terms of.
So far, I have total losses were 3. Another one is unlikely to be successful. Some others are in the race. 2 exits I could do so far. So those exits, they basically must pull the losses out. That's the thing. Now, what we often see is you have a founder or a team, they have a great idea, and this idea might lead to a nice income for them if they are successful. Well, that's good for them. But as an investor, I have not yet got my money back, and I definitely haven't got 10 times my money back. Yeah?
Exactly, and I think this is a really important point you're making, Tobias, which is the difference between earning money and making money. If we wanted to earn money, we would go to a 9-to-5 job and we have our monthly income. But the risk factor of actually trying to make money and really investing with a high risk is a totally different ballgame. So the factor of 10 is a need be, because we don't know when are we going to have the next tombstone or successful exit, and until then we have to budget and really what is going to be the survival, if not success rate of our portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the survival is good, actually. Yeah. So again, I think it's great if you're a founder and you are managing your success. You get your income. Maybe you can build a nice house. All great, yeah. Mm. But the next question really is, can you make this big? And when I come back to this scalability question, so as I said, number 1, team. Number 2, idea. Number 3, scalability. Scalability for me means very often also the readiness to leave your home market. And many founders are not ready to do that. You have a Swiss founder saying, hey, I have this great idea. I'm gonna do a B2C, so a customer product in Switzerland. My first question is, well, if this is a product where you sell something to customers, why the hell do you do it in Switzerland? Yeah. Why not going directly to Germany, where you have 1 language, 80 million people? In Switzerland, you have 4 languages on 8 million people.
Or to be at the DACH region. At the end of the day, anybody that speaks the German language is really included in a huge market if you take the DACH region, including Austria.
I think it's not a good approach to say, well, let's do first Switzerland, and then once we establish in Switzerland, we will go out to Germany. It takes much longer than you think. It also normally costs double as much to basically build the first market. The other problem is, in the time you build your Swiss market, if your idea really is good, it will be copied by somebody else in Germany. You have the means.
That's another thing. You have to be fast as well and nimble. And of course, everything comes, it's like the perfect storm. You have a great idea. You need to scale it everywhere. You don't have the resources yet, and even not the experience. But it's interesting what you said, that a lot of companies don't want to scale. With our partnership, Falco Capital, we are operational investors. What we describe as a slightly different model than a classical VC that just puts in money into the company. We put in partly money, but partly sweat. That means we buy in and build up, and not as advisors, but we are really standing next to the team, with the team, and help them to scale, because we go for the scale-up companies, those that have reached a certain level of income, revenues, and just need to push through that glass ceiling, whether it is geographically speaking or in another sense. And even if they have the funding, Tobias, I find they don't have the experience how to do it, the context, knowing the partners who to hook up with on an international basis. So it's quite hard to really ask startup companies, how are you going to scale?
Yeah, and the geographical mobility is a problem. Okay, now in COVID times, it is really a problem.
Impossible.
But when I hear that, hey, we are a founders team here in Zurich, and I ask them, well, guys, why don't you go to Berlin? Why don't you go to Silicon Valley or something like that? Yeah. I mean, it's great to have teams in Switzerland and to see them growing, but in some markets, Switzerland is just a too small market. And then, they hear that they have, my girlfriend is here, or boyfriend, whatever it is. Yeah. Well, as an investor, I must say, well, that's good for you, but then maybe I'm not your investor.
Yeah, it's prevention.
That you go where it's best for business. And, once you're successful, well, settle down wherever you like. Yeah? But at the beginning, maybe you must be more mobile. It depends, of course, what industry you're in. I mean, when I look at investments I have done, like, here I'm sitting at Crypto Finance Group or Singularity Group, I'm a co-founder and investor as well. Those companies have, by the nature of their business, a global audience. So you establish sooner or later an office in Singapore, for example, yeah. But it's not relevant whether you are sitting in Paris, in Zurich, or in Berlin.
Or whether there is a pandemic going on, because that's very digitally.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't make it easier, but you have access to everybody you want, because it's a B2B very often. Yeah, capital is how shall I say, is allocated easily enough in new geographies. But if you have a product which clearly is end customer focused, well, then you should start in a big market and not in the smallest one.
Yeah. And, that brings me to the financial model and the revenue model, because at the end of the day, what investors want, as you said, right from the beginning, yes, they like a nice product, but they want the benefits. And usually the benefits are something that companies need to be able to monetize and make us money. And if I sit in some pitches and they tell me about a potential market size of 65 billion, I'm like, okay, did you ever look into market segmentation? Where are you fitting in there? And once you maybe identified that, are you happy with 2%? And what does that mean? I find sometimes that the expectations or what they're trying to sell it could be a lot more precise and convincing, therefore.
Yeah, true. And the next thing you are talking about here is valuations. So if you come with your 65 billion market, it's easily to explain to a company with 600 million at day one. So here is my business plan. It's worth so and so many millions. Yeah? Very challenging. And what I see here a bit from experience is, even if you can push through a very high valuation at the beginning, as a founder, you put yourself under a lot of pressure, because you will need more money. It's very seldom that your seed round has been it, and from then on you're break even. And normally you need a Series A, maybe a Series B, whatever. Now, let's say you say, I make an example. You say, my company day one is worth 20 million. I have this idea. It's great. Look how big the market is. 20 million is what it is, and I would like to raise 2 million. And let's say you are an excellent salesperson, and let's say the market is just ripe for that, and you can do it. Congratulations. Yeah. You only have to give away 10% of your company, and you have 2 million cash in the bank. Now, let's say you have spent this or invested this 2 million after 1 year, and you see that, well, maybe it's a bit more difficult than I thought. I need to raise another 2 million because now I have a team and these people need to be paid salaries and so on. And you go out and you say, well, I need to raise another 2 million. And since we have reached so much already, we are worth now 40 million. Well, you can bet that investors will compare what you have promised in round one, when you were worth 20 million, and they will tell you, well, sorry, but you told us that you will have a turnover of X, that you will be in so and so many countries present. And when we look at the milestones you basically suggested to reach with your 20 billion valuation and what you have reached now, we are not even sure that you're worth 20 million. And then you need to do a down round. And that's very complicated and difficult and so on.
But that is so spot on. If I may interject there, Tobias, I think valuation is really a big point of contention, because you really have two opposite sides. You have the entrepreneur and the team totally in love with whatever they created, that disruptive new technology that nobody else has, no competition. And of course, they value it like their own baby. And they should do, because that gives them the energy to just combat and really walk what they want to do. But we are on the other side, and we say like, okay, that valuation, great, but show us the numbers, show us some realistic and convincing and credible scenarios, that even the best case scenario or even the worst case scenario is still a lot of goodwill from an investor's side.
Absolutely. And this brings us back to the perfect pitch. I mean, if a founder comes with his huge vision, what he wants to achieve, and he is at point zero, yeah, and he tells us about this and this and this and this, you might not find it credible. I think what I like to see is a certain reality behind the forecasts. That the founder says, look, this is where I want to go. Yeah, the sky is the limit. However, we do a round now of 0.5 million at a valuation of 3 million, for example. Yeah. And what we want to achieve is milestone number one. We want to have our product ready for market. And when we have this, we plan to do a next round of another 1.5 million at a higher valuation. You know, I can follow those steps. And I see that the entrepreneur has thought through a process. And I think I'm more likely to invest than if somebody shares his grand vision and says, look, in order to reach the grand vision, I need 10 million, my valuation is 30 million, and let's go for it. Because, you know, as an investor, and you should be, you have to sometimes be a bit conservative and not just say, well, you know,
I like you, I love you, I give you my money.
Yeah. But I think that the prudent way here is to say, well, you have a great idea. I believe you're a great team. Let's see whether you get this on the ground. Let's start with milestone number one.
Exactly. And I think that really brings us back to the entrepreneur and the team, and that is integrity. So I always would advise, you know, don't overpromise and underdeliver. So even if you have maybe a contract that might be signed next week, don't say anything to me, because if you don't, you look really with egg on your face to me. And I'm just thinking, okay, if he delivers within a week of our first getting to know each other or negotiations, what is it going to be like with really those sales milestones that he's been trying to convince me with? That is one thing that I think is very important. The other thing is what you were saying about, okay, you have a young company raising the first round, and then they're starting to build, and they totally forgot the focus of any walking, talking business, which is revenues, the P&L. Maybe they look at the balance sheet, but they're not driving enough the sales home, which is really what we were sold on, because we want to make money to just get it very, very crude. So they come back to us, and I'm just thinking, well, I just gave you a couple of million asset allocation. What happened? And this is where I also see, you know, an operational investor taking the person, without being condescending, the entrepreneur by the hand and saying, look, we now have good 2 million under the belt. This is our strategy, the go-to-market strategy being number one. And of course, you have to build a business and do a little bit of R&D and a lot of marketing. But at the end of the day, you need to sell. And I think there, a lot of entrepreneurs haven't got it yet. It's about not the perfect product, but the perfect go-to-market for the product you have, and starting to make money in order to build a business realistically. Yeah. Would you agree?
Fully agree. And what I also often see is that, you know, startup teams, they're super good in winning prizes. You know, we won the XYZ prize for being the best startup.
Or subsidies, same thing, state subsidies.
There, and, you know, they manage sometimes to finance 2 years on prizes, subsidies, whatever it is. And it slows them down in the time to market. Yeah? So in the companies I'm invested in or I co-founded, winning a prize was never the important thing. What we want to be is with the product in the market as soon as possible. And if you have a good idea, you will find money. There is a lot of money out there from investors, so you don't even need to win a prize. If the prize is super helpful for selling your product, you know, it might be that you said, our vacuum cleaner has won the prize of the best vacuum cleaner in the world. Okay, of course this helps, yeah. But whether you are winning the XYZ Foundation Prize for the best startup might not really help selling your product.
Absolutely.
And so I'm sometimes even a bit skeptical if I hear that the startup has won 6 prizes already. Then I wonder, well, could that time have been invested much better in time to market for the product? Yeah?
We've been doing nothing else but filling in, forms to apply. Absolutely, that is also a thought of mine. Well, one of the companies you co-founded is Singularity Group, Tobias, and we had Singularity Group, Evelyn Flugi, the founder, co-founder, together with you on the show on Mentory TV. She was one of my first interviewees and supporters also of my initiative here, and I cannot help but love her. She is so smart, educated, down to earth, at the same time, very, very strategic, and she just knows what she wants. That is my take. Now, you as a co-founder, if you had Evelyn in front of you pitching, the entire idea, which I guess she did at some point, what convinced you about Singularity Group that you not only co-founded, but you're staying with them, you are, an integral part of the strategy and also the growth process?
Well, if you're the co-founder, of course, it's a very different thing than if you come later and you're asked in as an investor. But however, I'm an investor in the funds as well, so I do believe in our products there. Why do I believe in the products? Because again, they solve a problem. What is the problem here is disruptive innovation is very, very difficult for large companies to grasp, and often they stumble over it. Take Blockbuster Video. The largest video rental company in the world, they did not see video streaming coming.
Yeah, Netflix, here we go.
Kodak is a great example, they missed the digital camera. So what Singularity does here is they identify companies which are already having turnover from disruptive innovation. And for me, this is an excellent preparation for the future, and that's why I'm investing in these funds. Yeah? Now, on Evelyn, I think what is excellent, well, she does an excellent job in general, but I think what is really impressive is the alignment she has with the company. She is the CEO and co-founder. I don't say what salary she has, but it's a low one. She has the money staying in the company. She rather likes to invest this money in hiring the best people and so on, and having the best product. And that's exactly what I want to see from an entrepreneur. Yep. Standing back with your own needs, to where it's possible, and make sure that the company needs come first. And I think Evelyn does an excellent job on that. So we, as co-founders, we often have discussions on what to do, where to go. But I definitely never need to have a discussion on alignment of interest. That's absolutely perfect. And I think that's also for investors in the fund, again, super relevant, because investor in the fund, they want to have a long-term motivated team. And I think Evelyn and her team, they are in for it for the long term. It's not, let's try it. That's what we do. We will be successful. It takes time to grow a company, but the growth is now nicely. And that's exactly what you want to see as an investor and as a co-founder, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I liked also about Singularity Group and the way that Evelyn is handling it is she has an idea of a process, which again is a big thing when you say, okay, great, this is what you want to do, this way you want to go, this way how much you want to have. But I ask myself, how? Tell me exactly, and I'm not talking strategy, I'm really talking how are you going to go about it from a micro point of view, i.e. Who is involved in that development of that goal, and what are the processes, the steps. And there a lot of entrepreneurs, young companies, even teams of maybe even 10, 15 people are just not as efficient as I would hope for. Is that too much to ask, you think?
Well, I think, some people are structured. Evelyn is structured, or, for example, Jan Brezek, my co-founder at Crypto Finance Group, are very structured, process-oriented and so on. And that's perfect if you build a company, because you focus on what is needed. I see a problem with many founders that they have too much focus on little things. And to be honest, I fully understand that. When I built my first company, I was a student, and no joke, I spent 2 weeks on thinking what should be the name, what should be the corporate identity, what colors, what should be the font of our logo. Yeah. And it's irrelevant. Huh?
It is. It
You
is.
can
It
change
is.
it later on. Yeah? You even could change the name. The name, I mean, come on. Computers with the name of Apple are sold. Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
I founded the company.
Oh, blackberries.
How stupid can it be? Yeah? I founded an investment company investing in clean infrastructure called SUSI.
Yeah.
SUSI stands for SES Sustainable I Investments, but Sustainable Investment Partner sounds boring, so I called it SUSI. Is this name super elegant? No, it's not. You can laugh about it, but you remember it easily. Yeah? And it took me half an hour and half a bottle of red wine to find that name. Yeah? So
Okay. Well,
I really think that when you build a company, focus on the key thing. What is key? Your product. That's key.
and the problem it solves. The problem it solves. Because this is what you need to sell to us.
Identify the problem and then the solution. That's your product. And I think the other thing, and Elon Musk does a great job with Tesla, your product does not yet have to be perfect when you bring it to the market.
Well, where would we be? I always say this also to the entrepreneurs that we have in our portfolio. Stop running after perfection. Progress is important. If we would have had the perfect Apple phone, there wouldn't be generation 11. There wouldn't be. Actually, if nothing else, it's a bit like, under promise and over deliver. Always hold a little bit back and just sell this one, because then you can sell the updates, the next versions, etc., etc. And everything evolves because the marketplace evolves. So you have to refine your product, your structure, your go-to-market strategy on a continuous basis anyway, if you want to be a sustainable good business. So this running for perfection, which I was trying to say early on when I said, okay, a lot of the entrepreneurs are so much in love with what they do, and they want to always R&D, and R&D can get better because they think it can. It's good for us. If you can sell it, it's good enough for now. Make sure it continues to be at the market edge, of course, but don't stop even trying to sell just because you think it's not good enough.
I do agree. Over engineering is not needed, and if you're too much in love, but that's also, if you are the CEO of a startup company, you should be an 80-20 person.
Yeah.
You can have your, CTO can be a 100% person, or your head legal later on should be a 100% person.
Well, an Ernst & Young, so one can detect maybe certain companies in Germany doing a $2 billion fraud.
No, but the point really is you need to make decisions fast. And you cannot always wait until you have 100% security. You are a risk taker. Risk is nothing negative. Risk needs to be managed, but risk allows you to make money at the end. If you take zero risk, you will make zero money, I believe.
Yeah.
And so as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to take decisions fast based on the best knowledge available at a certain time, but you cannot wait too long. By the way, what I always say about, if you build a founders team, first of all, why do you need a founders team? I'm not sure that you need one. Of course, it's nice if you share the long office hours together with somebody. It's nice if you are, not lonely at the forefront of your company. However, if you can build your company on your own, hire people.
Yeah.
Why do you want to give away shares early on just not to be lonely? Better raise a bit more capital and hire people. Yes? And yes, they will not have the same motivation as you, but you can motivate them with some shares and a pool or something like that. But I think when we look at how teams are being built, this is a marriage, and very often those marriages are split early on.
Yeah.
So another thing, what I look on in a pitch is when I see a team in that case is, do they have a similar motivation? Do they all want to have an exit in 2 years? That's very different than if one of the guys says, well, I want to build something for the long, I want to build a universe, and the other guy says, well, what I want to have is $1 million, and as soon as somebody offers me one, I'm out of here. The second thing is incentivization. Is the team incentivized enough everybody? Is it just one founder? At Shark Tank in Switzerland, we had one company where 3 founders presented, and when I asked about, so who is owning how many shares, it turned out that only one founder has all the shares, and that eventually he plans to give away something. That's
no, you have to have skin in the game. I think that is very, very important, that everybody feels that they're contributing really, and it makes a difference whether they are contributing or not, to build a cathedral. And you are more interested if you're building your own money, your own income, your own success in the company.
And the other thing is, you don't need a devil's advocate. Yeah? So, you know, I work a lot with lawyers, and I meet them, and they're very helpful. They tell me, well, this could go wrong and that could go wrong. And you need to know it at a certain point, but not on day one. If on day one you focus on what could go wrong, you will not build that company. You need optimists. At the beginning, you need optimists. Yeah. Of course, you need to be with a certain, how shall I say, respect to the rules. You cannot break the law and everything, but focus on how to get this thing working. And you need to be an optimist, because a lot of hurdles are in front of you. Yeah.
And let me just pick you up on that one, because what I've also seen is you may have great startuppers, i.e. entrepreneurs, that after a while, once the company has reached a certain dynamic, a certain level, are just not good managers, and are not maybe interested in all the nitty-gritty of really building a business from the backbone up, and not only focused on the product. And there sometimes I find it very hard to either coach the CEO, so coachability in CEOs for me personally also is very important, or the moment to say, okay, I step back, I'm still owner, I'm still, I still have stewardship of what is happening, but there are better managers around. Thanks for staying with us for the first part of our conversation with Dr. Tobias Reichmuth on Pitch Perfect, and make sure, if you like the conversation, to subscribe to the channel.